Hey everyone, we are live right on time. 11. I'm Pacific time, so 11 o'clock. For those that are just tuning in and joining us, and who haven't seen the last couple that I've done, I'm pretty new to live streams. I'm Eric. I do the SketchUp campus videos, so you probably know my voice. I've also got my good friend Jody back with me today. So Jody, if you want to say hi.
I'm here, and I'm an old timer at this. I'll try and keep my words relevant and important for you.
Yeah, this is the image I wanted to show. Sorry, I had my SketchUp model on the background, and that was a blank model, so it's not very exciting. It doesn't tell you anything, but this is the image I wanted to have behind me because this is what we're doing today. We're doing a urban park, and not just any urban park. We're not making it up from scratch. We're doing one that exists in the real world, so it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun for me because my background is landscape architecture and urban design, and that's actually why I started using SketchUp. It was just it was taking our designs, whether it was context in order to analyze a design in 2D and bringing that 3D context in, or whether it was actually taking something that we designed from scratch and then visualizing it to see how it works. And I just, as soon as I started playing around with 3D about 15 years ago, I just obviously fell in love with it. So that's my thing. Sorry, I'm a bit of a one-trick pony. No, I'm a two-trick pony because I like landscapes and I like to render. So
those are two really important things when it comes to SketchUp.
I think so. We were talking before the stream went live. If you need like a really complex robot built, I could probably do it, but I'm not going to be the best person. But if you want to take a bunch of objects and arrange them into a composition and tell a story about a sense of place, then that's what I love. So anyway, I don't think there's anything else to say about it. I think we should. That's the site. I'm gonna give a little bit more information about the park as we go. So I'm not gonna spend too much time going into that detail. I'm gonna kind of give a little bit of history and a few facts, and of course some the reason why why I picked this one and why it's interesting. So unless there's anything you want to, any housekeeping items, Jody, you want to.
Well, I just want to double check if there's anything Keggy said right off the bat that sound was out of sync. I don't know if it's remaining out of sync for people, but I don't have anything I can do on my end, and I don't know if you can do anything on your end. But maybe try and talk slower. I don't know. I don't know. If it continues to be an issue, then yeah, Colin says it's out of sync as well.
Oh,
I don't
no.
know how to fix that.
Well, this is when we have. Hang on one second. All right, hang on, everyone. Let me just check one setting here. We do have an application. Let me double check my settings. This is when we need Matt, when Matt's on, because we have a guy who actually... It is. I can see it on my side. There's a little bit of a delay on my side where I can see it talks, and then it catches up just slightly behind.
Is it an OBS setting?
Yeah, it's OBS. Looks like it's in OBS.
Good, because I literally have two buttons to click for YouTube on my side.
Well, that's not going to be very much fun if there's a delay. If I'm talking and you're, and I mean, it'll be real. You'll be able to see what I'm doing, but it won't be as much fun. Let's try switching. Let's go try switching to the model setting and see if that's any better. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my main camera screen. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. Now, if I'm going to, let's just start by drawing a quick rectangle and push it up. How is that, Jody? Was it close enough to real time that we could continue?
It looked like it, but let's see if anybody else is freaking out.
So if I'm describing what I'm doing and I say, here now I'm pulling up and I'm going to push down, I just want to make sure it's good enough that we can continue. Otherwise, we'll have to troubleshoot. I don't want to have to do that.
Well, from the camera angle I've got, it looks good. Everything seems to match up. But.
Okay. Might have been that intro setting. I'm not sure. I apologize, everyone. This is my third time. We still have some bugs to work out. I'm going to go ahead and just thank you.
Colin Keggy said it's there. It's about a 2-second difference, but it's livable.
Okay. Well, let's go forward with that. And thanks everyone, as always, for your patience. It is technology, folks. We do the best we can. Okay. So back on track. we've got a blank model here because I think unlike the last couple live streams that I did, it's more about, for me, I kind of was thinking about compositing and rendering. So I had something to start with for both of those. And I thought, okay, let's do something different. Let's do kind of what Aaron and Tyson do, where they have an image or they have a sketch or an idea and they just go for it. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. So now, except for the fact that when you start, I'm going to go ahead and just to give ourselves so that we know where we are in the world, because we're working in a real world site, I'm going to start by opening up Geo-location. I'm going to go ahead and add this place. So I am currently in Portland, Oregon. This is where I physically am. And this is where the site is. So I'm going to navigate. If for those that aren't familiar, I know Transom, if he's with us, probably is familiar with the site. He's Pacific Northwest. I'm going to navigate to the Pearl District, which used to be, fun fact, some old rail yards, which you'll see why that it came into the park design here shortly. And what I want to do is just kind of grab this for reference. And this will tell us a little bit about whether or not we're drawing accurately. It'll also give us real world shadows, and it'll tell us a little bit about what's happening on the ground so that we can double check from photographs against the aerial, against some line work that I have. So we're going to basically get all the information that we can that's going to help guide us. When I say us, I mean all of us. But for me anyway, it's going to help guide me in this process of modeling this park. So I'm going to do a satellite image. I'm going to check to see. Sometimes the street map actually looks better. But in this case, I don't think it's going to be as useful. I'm going to go switch to the satellite. I'm going to select a region.
It's interesting how the path next to the wavy wall looks all pixelated and jagged because it's steps.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to import that at sort of the highest resolution that I can get. I know that for some places, oh, that was fun. I was probably too high resolution. I'm going to undo that. So for those that don't know, or those that do know, we did add a new feature recently, which I'm still getting the hang of. It's actually Bing Maps. So we have Digital Globe, which is what we're used to. We have Near Map, which you could purchase, and Bing Map is, so now we have 3 options for providers. But sometimes, depending on the resolution, you actually have to back up a little bit and think, oh, actually, it doesn't have that high resolution. So if it comes in blank like it just did for me, it's probably because I was trying to get too high of resolution, and that's not available at this time. Let's try this again. There we go. Or maybe I just had my...
It's on, and he said it does look familiar. He recognizes your spot.
He recognizes my spot. Okay, so just so you know, I have my little scale figure in here, so you can see what the scale, where we are, how big sort of this park is. The cool thing about Portland is their blocks, actually, for people who haven't been, they are smaller than a typical city block. They are 200 by 200 feet, which is actually why you can fit so many of these tight little buildings that take up the entire block, because these are actually these tiny little micro blocks almost. So it makes you feel like you're covering more ground than you really are when you're walking around town. So the next thing we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this transparent. And again, Jody, let me know if anybody's got any questions about or came in late and just wants a little bit of a refresher on what we're doing and why, let me know. But we've got our site in, and I've got my transparency, my X-ray mode on, because I'm going to be drawing on top of this, and this will just help me, at least in the beginning, by positioning. And I have a CAD file that I did. I was lucky when I picked this park originally. I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do this completely from scratch, which is going to be boring for a lot of you to watch me trace this aerial. But then I remembered that I taught a workshop for Cal Poly Pomona in Southern California about 10 years ago. And I actually taught a diagramming workshop using Adobe Illustrator. So we went from CAD to Illustrator. And now I actually am glad that I did that workshop because I have that CAD file. So use as much stuff as you have. Even if you're not sure if it's useful, go get it. When you're doing a site plan, you're doing urban design, you're doing context analysis, if you can get GIS, if you can get topo, if you can get nearby buildings, anything you can get it, because you don't know exactly at this point, what's going to be useful and whatnot.
The bigger your toolbox, the better you'll be.
Now, one thing, just because I know I know that my CAD file here was drawn orthographically, right? So that it's drawn so that the perpendicular and parallel lines, but you'll notice the actual layout of the city is slightly off of true north-south. You can see if I zoom in close, there's a little bit of an angle. So I have two choices here. I can rotate my whole CAD, or I can rotate my aerial. But the problem is either one of those is going to create some challenges. If I rotate the CAD, just for example, is now all of a sudden I'm not drawing, parallel and perpendicular to the axis. If I rotate the aerial, then all of a sudden it's not true to its actual real world location. So what I like to do instead is I will actually redo that CAD rotation. So, and instead what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll grab this axis and I'll place. Sometimes I say axes and sometimes I say axis. And I'm going to align that. What?
Aaron always says the wrong one based on what he's doing.
Oh,
It
really?
takes a skill. It's a real skill to be able to use it incorrectly so consistently.
Well, one is plural and one is singular, isn't it? Or is it? I'm just confused. So what I did there was I placed the axis and I used the CAD line work to line this up. So when I come over here and I go, you can see camera. I have a shortcut, so that's why I did that so fast. But I have a shortcut set up. But when I go camera, standard views top, what it does now is it actually aligns. This is a newer feature, so if you've got an older version of SketchUp, you're going to be frustrated like I used to be a long time ago. But now you can actually rotate the camera view when you're looking top down. So now when I draw, you can see I'm actually orthogonal to the CAD and to the axis. So a little pro tip. I learned that at Basecamp, by the way. When you say pro tip, it makes you sound way more professional. Like after everything say, you say pro tip, guys.
Well, and then also everybody listening feels like they're in the know now. Like they're part of an elite club.
It's funny because we are working in SketchUp Pro, so it's almost like anything that's a SketchUp tip could be a pro tip. So I made this a group just to work with it, but I'm actually going to go ahead and you can see it's taking a second because it's got a lot of CAD geometry to explode. I grouped it only because I wanted to move it together, but really what I want to do is I'm going to start to manipulate these objects. It's going to be easier to do when it's not inside of this group. And I don't know why it's taking so long. It should only take like 5 seconds, but that's okay. I'll give it a second and try not to let it do its thinking. So, because what I want to do is I'm using this CAD geometry essentially as the basis to create faces, because we can't, as you know, we can't model anything until we have faces. Oh, don't tell me I have to redo this. This is just going to be a difficult day for me.
Yeah, so when you did this initial CAD drawing, did you have GIS data you were working from to create these blocks, or how much of that was done by hand back when you did it?
Oh no, I think I just traced an aerial, which is funny actually. You'll notice that some of the paths are different because this was this was like 12 years ago. So it's possible that they had made some changes to the park over time, or it's possible that I just was a sloppy drafter.
Or climate change, the paths have just they've just moved around because of climate change. I'm sure that's it.
Yeah. So I want to double check these. I don't know if these are blocks or not, because if these are blocks, let me see here. No. Okay. So select. Okay. Those are not blocks. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. What we want to do is, I've got all this CAD line work in here, but the only one that I want to turn off is the trees. And the reason why is because the trees sit above the surface. So when we see the canopy symbol in 2D, that's because the canopy is being represented abstracted, but we know that the canopy is actually going to be 10, 15, 20 feet off the ground. So I want to make sure that I separate anything that sits above the surface into its either own tag or into its own group. And so I'm only working with things that touch the surface or touch the ground in this point. So I want to make sure to turn that tree off. In fact, since it wasn't drawn properly, it's not a component. It should have been drawn as a component. I'm actually just not even going to use those trees. You'll see, we'll do trees at the end. We'll just do it manually. But I'm also not even interested. You'll notice that all of this stuff was drawn with layers, which was nice. That's good for the way that you should be drafting. But I'm actually not going to worry about that, because you'll see why in just a second. And some people might be like, oh no, don't do this. But what I'm going to do is actually delete all of these tags, and I'm going to assign them all to untag. So essentially, the reason why I'm doing that is
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I know why. This is what happens when you're talking. What you want to do is you don't want to delete the location snapshot. This is why it's challenging. So location snapshot shows up in the middle, which is why I always give that little S prefix to my tag. So that way my location, I don't actually do what I just did. So I want to only delete my CAD lines. I don't want to my CAD tags. I don't want to delete my location snapshot tags. I want to leave the location information on its own tag, obviously. So when I do that, if I did that properly, yeah, if I did that properly, I could turn that off and on. And I think just to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to save a scene, and I'm just going to call this line work, and we'll see if this helps us. And then I'm going to turn one on, and we'll just call that aerial. All right, so what's cool about that is I can switch back and forth between these two. What I like about that too is, and I'm also going to save the X-ray to a new style, because you can notice that when I created this style, I didn't save it as a new style. So that's why it defaulted back. So what I want to do is basically make sure that I can look at my line work and see how that's coming, and I can look at my trace. And if I really wanted to take it a step further, if those of you have seen one of my more recent skill builders that I released, if you uncheck camera location for both of these, for both my working and my sort of final views, the cool thing about that is I could be zooming in and drafting, and I could switch and see what it looks like. To me, I know that I could go over to my tags and toggle that off, but I may actually have more than one tag that I'd want to toggle off. Excuse me. So that way, as I kind of work around different parts of the site, and as I rotate around my plan, I can just really quickly use the aerial as a reference, or I can just look at, see how my line work is coming out. Still with me?
I think so. Nobody's lost, or you've stunned everyone into silence.
Yeah, I've stunned myself. I'm gonna undo. There we go. Okay. So for those of you that didn't catch this, this is why this is fun, because when you have a layer that's turned off, like I froze that tree layer, and then when you delete it, what happens is that it actually turns it back on. So because I don't want those trees, because they're not CAD blocks, they're raw geometry, I actually have to delete that one separate. And instead of saying assign to untag, I'm going to delete it. If somebody said, Eric, if you just drew this properly from the beginning, then you wouldn't have to do this. But
you did this before you were using SketchUp in your workflow.
I did this 12 years ago, so I would like to think that I've learned a thing or two since then. So if I did it now, it should be good to go. So anyway, let's continue on, folks. Okay, so the next step is with working with CAD files. Even if I drew this myself, the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of all this context. So I am going to start to create some tags. I'm going to call this context, and the reason why is because I may or may not want all this context. I think context is great, but at this point in time, given the fact that we're live modeling and we've only got so much time, I think we're just going to focus on just the park block itself. So I'm going to select all the stuff that's sort of outside of the site. I'm going to group it. I always group it first out of habit, and then I'm going to go ahead and put that on a context and turn that off. And if I missed anything, that's a good way. I can just go ahead and I'll regroup it later. Let's keep moving. And then, of course, if you wanted to, you can update that. And then that way, what it means is that it won't show that context when I go to check this. All right, so you can see there's some discrepancies
so much
a little
preparation.
bit. What's that? So much preparation. It is a lot of preparation. But once we get modeling, it's going to get fun. But we're starting from scratch, and so you kind of have to do this, because otherwise,
yeah.
How else?
No, we normalize preparation, because it'll definitely, in the long run, we'll be less frustrated.
So for those of you that work with CAD files, you're drafting in plan view, pretty much almost entirely in plan view. So what happens all the time, especially if you have a survey file from if you get a survey file from somebody, is that their contours or things are in 3D. And so you're snapping in CAD to things that are 3D, but you're looking at it in 2D. So you don't know that you're actually giving it Z information. You're giving it elevation data. So there's so many times that you'll come in and you'll bring your CAD file in, and you're going to find these stray things up on the top. So even if I drafted this myself, or even if I knew that it was flat, I would still go in and double check it. I would select all my CAD line work, come over here to my extensions, used Enroth, flatten to plane, and watch these little floating strays. It drops them down. It's basically going to drop it down, so it's all now sitting completely flat. And the problem with that, of course, is if this line wasn't there, then I wouldn't be able to close it. I wouldn't be able to make faces. So the next thing is I'm going to go ahead and select everything. This is where it's going to, so thanks everyone for getting through this first, 15 minutes, but this is where it's going to start to get fun. I'm going to now use the face creator because it's, and this is Enroth's face creator because it's a free extension, to turn everything into faces. So if my CAD line work is drawn correctly, then it should all close itself. You can't see here because my shadow settings, because I'm working with white, you can't see that it's white on white, right? But if I go ahead and change for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just apply a color here to my faces. Or what I could do is, yeah, there we go. Okay, so you can see that I have faces. So sorry if you couldn't see that, it's because I'm working white on white.
That looks clear. That's good.
That's good. Okay, so what I do is I kind of go through and I check here and I just kind of select a few things. I don't select everything. I'm not too worried if there's a couple pieces that didn't, fill in right. But for the most part, if you did good drafting, everything will fill in perfectly, which shows that I actually wasn't too bad a CAD drafter 12 years ago because all of my faces do seem to be closing properly. So that's it. We've got some faces. Now, this is at a point where we had a few options. This is what I typically do when I do my site plans is I go in and I might want to put on my aerial on for this one because I want to look at what the different materials are. I tend to work at things by material, and that's because if you saw my render one, when you work by material and you're going to render, it actually speeds the process up. So by kind of default, I tend to just pop in some colors. They don't even have to be completely realistic. I know that there's this wetland grass here. And I know for anyone who says that it doesn't match the aerial, that's because it has changed. The park has changed in 12 years. But I'm going to go with what my CAD line work shows just to kind of keep things moving. And I know it switches materials here. So this is actually lawn, and then this is more like a wetland grass. So I do kind of want to change. I want to make sure that I'm using two different greens. Let's pick a different green. And these greens are kind of harsh, but I like to mellow. I like to mellow my greens.
So you're leaving some of the lines between where paths connect. Is that strategic or?
Yes.
Or is that you just hadn't messed with it?
Yeah, each one of these I was drawn separately because they're different building construction materials. So it's nice because it's also, if you were taking this as to a construction document, you could say, you could just really quickly pull an area count and say, that's 1,600 square foot, and this is pavers, and this is DG, right? DG is short for decomposed granite. So the cool thing about that is that by keeping your materials separate, not only does it help you pre-think if you go to rendering, but what it does is it also allows for like quick area takeoffs if you decide you need to do that by material. So,
nice.
So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. I think we've got some water in here that I missed. So let me go ahead and fill in some water, and then just bear with me for a couple minutes and this is a good time if somebody's got any questions as to what I've done so far or why I've done it, or if someone's just coming into the chat, let me know who's here and we'll welcome them.
Oh, everybody's here. So you just welcome all of them, yeah.
Everybody's
now
here.
The welcomes are 2 scroll pages back where I'd start chiming everybody in. Sven's dropping a lot of knowledge about how to accomplish all that the line stuff you were doing a little while ago while you're still in CAD. But do you remember what you created this in originally?
This was originally drawn in CAD, yeah.
In AutoCAD?
AutoCAD. So when I say CAD, AutoCAD. So this is a catwalk, so I want that to be a different material. And then this is DG, which is actually DG, that's funny. DG is California. I work in California. I've worked in California and in Oregon. Oregon, they use what's called crushed basalt because I don't know if you know this, but the geography here you get a lot of basalt in the Pacific Northwest. In California, you get a lot of granite, so you get decomposed granite. See, you learned
Interesting.
something today. If anybody wants to go home, they can say, I learned one thing today from Eric.
Actually, Paul's pointing out that just watching you kind of going through with the correction process on your import is already a nice boost. I do love to see how other people solve problems I've encountered. So,
all right,
completely get that.
Yeah, thanks everyone for bearing with me. I know some of this stuff just kind of feels a bit routine, but that is the process, and it's process because we just got back from Vancouver. So that's how they say it there. But it's important. It's important that we go through these sort of almost boring steps first because it's going to make everything so much easier later. So I know that for some people are like, yeah, let's skip ahead to the fun stuff. But we're almost there. So what I'm going to do is, this is a different material here. This is a boardwalk. It's a wood boardwalk. So I'm going to make that more of like a wood color. That's not really a wood color. That's not a wood color either, but I'm going to go with it because otherwise I'll just be picking colors all day. You want to know why the colors change? It's because when you have your shadow settings, for me anyway, if you have your shadow settings set really light, you're going to get a very different color on the screen based on what you think you're picking. So just if you ever find your colors aren't lining up to what you think they are, just go back and double check your light settings here. And if you don't like the way they look, the colors are too bright or something, you don't have to change the colors. You can just go into your shadow settings and adjust it and see if that looks a little bit better. But of course, don't forget to update your scene, right? Because shadows are stored not in styles, but their shadow settings are stored in scenes. So if you do make that change, make sure that you update it in your scene. So anyway, let's get modeling. Are you ready?
Ready.
I'm asking you. It's funny, I'm asking you. Of course, I'm the one who's... Okay, so first thing we want to do is come down and I want to grab this step and I'm going to go ahead and make this a component before, because I know that this stair, I've got more than one of them. So because you have more than one of it, it's going to be a component. So I'm going to come up the standard stair height, which is 6 inches. And anyone who's like really into construction, detailing, don't hold me. This is a concept model, right? So if I glaze over something or if my seat wall height's a little bit off, don't hold me to that, because it is going to be I'm taking some artistic liberty here. So what I like to do too is I like to group things before I extrude, and I'll tell you why here. Let me show you an example. If you push-pull this seat wall up, and then I push-pull this grass up, but then I want to bring the grass back down, like let's just say 1 inch, so that there's a little bit of an edge there, you can see that that wall then picks up the grass material. And that's kind of, to me, that's kind of annoying. So if I went back and did this separately and said, let's group that wall first, let's push-pull this wall up, and then whether this grass is grouped or not, it can come up and down, and you're not getting that, that material is not transferring over. So by grouping things, it just not only is it smart just to kind of keep it from being sticky, but for anyone who's seen that problem where, the side of the walls are picking up the materials of the adjacent geometry, that's why. So
Paul's asking if you model the down or the up first when you're starting an elevation. Like do you tend to just assume that you're at the lowest point when you're starting?
That's a great question. I thought about that before as I was getting ready for this demo here, this little lesson, is that, do I want to go up or down? And the reality is that you're going to find going up is always easier. So if what I would do is probably move my model down so that it's below grade. The only challenge with that, of course, is if you turn shadow settings on, you're going to see that the on-ground setting is going to mess that up. You want to turn your on-ground shadows off because you're below grade. So what I would do is I would model up first and then I would move it into place. But each project's going to be different. So, I'd say take that advice with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Also, Barry makes a good point. Is it still looks like we're working with an untitled document here?
Nope.
Meaning?
I just covered it with Tanner Springs. No, thank you.
Well,
thank you for pointing that out.
They were specifically pointing out that it might be time to save.
Oh, it's always time to save.
It's always time to save 5 times by now.
Well, I'm using 2-foot height for these seat walls. So again, anybody who wants to, I'm looking at it. I also model, I don't mind modeling in parallel projection. So I will switch back and forth occasionally, but I often will model in parallel projection. So I don't know why. I think I'm one of the kind of a few weird people who do that.
Do you have a shortcut you've assigned for switching between the two, or I don't even know if you can. I don't even know if that's possible. But
yeah, you can actually. I don't, because that's actually a good question. I probably should. So what I want to do
You
for
model
now,
so much faster if you did.
I know, but you know what? Modeling to me is like therapy. Like I don't mind. Oh, look at that mistake. Do you see what I did there? That wall needs to come down 2 feet. Oh, you know
Oh,
what?
yeah,
2 feet's not going to work. I should have done some math. What does Aaron say? Math is hard. I'm gonna redo those because I think 2 feet isn't gonna work, and I think 2 feet's too high for a seat wall height anyway. So if I was gonna be really particular, I would use 18 inches, which is a better seat wall height. So again, anybody who has design experience, feel free to call me out on any of these. Group. And I could make this a component. This is actually this could be actually interesting because you could make this wall a component if you wanted to, because I'll show you why. If I'm going to group it because I'm not too worried about it. It's kind of a one-off. But basically, if you wanted to, you could scale. It might screw you up with materials, but if you made this a component, you could use the same wall, and you can actually use scale to get it at different heights. Now, the only reason why you wouldn't want to do that is it could mess up. If you have materials applied to the faces, it will stretch them. But if you apply your materials to the container afterwards, it won't. But the reason why I say that is because what if I wanted to go back in and round the top of wall off? I would do it once, and it would do it to all of them. But we're not worried about that much detail for this. So
looks like we've got both Donovan and Tyson here representing. Oh. And Tyson is chiming in to point out that nobody on the team seems to do math. So
nobody.
You're in good company.
And Tyson's probably going to he's going to make some comment about landscaping because he's going to try and get me riled up. Because
so far he's being very nice.
Oh, well, Tyson, I've been waiting for it then. I guess now I'm disappointed. So you see, you can't win. All right. So that was now what's cool about this is that because this is somewhat symmetrical, if I wanted to grab basically this set of walls, this set of stairs, and this set of grass, I could make this a component. I don't really like my colors, but I'm going to call this stairs walls, just for good habit. And let's see if this works, if this saves me any time. I'm going to copy this over. And I'll make sure I'm copying on the axis, or what I can do is just lock it. You know, if I'm worried, I can just lock it. And I'm going to use my little Chris Rosewarne tip, which I'm always going to thank him for that because I swear it's such an obvious one, but it's such a good one. All right. If you see these vertical lines here, that's because I didn't weld my edges, CAD. So when it goes from CAD to SketchUp, it actually takes a vector line and then it segments it. So it breaks it. So if I wanted to, I could have welded that. But the other thing too is it doesn't really bother me. If I wanted to, I could come back later and I could just say soften that and it'll just take care of that. So either way, whether you want to do it afterwards or you want to do it before, just kind of keep that in mind. And by the way, pro tip, weld is native for those people who don't know. You can weld by using the right-click menu, and you can weld that.
Nice. Thanks for the pro tip.
Yeah. Oh, see what I did right there? Okay, let's try this. Let's see. This is a good example. Let's go ahead and select these edges. I'm going to right-click it. There's weld edges. I don't need my colors for right now. So when I pull this up, oh, it worked. See how smooth that is?
Oh, glorious.
Okay. I'm going to leave this wall here because I want to spend some time on this wall because this is going to be the trickiest part of this project. And if you don't like the colors, if that's bugging you, I could also model in black and white. It was just important for me to be thinking about the colors because if I did want to assign them to tags, a really quick way to do this is to right select, say select all in the material, all in the same material. I could group that. And now all of a sudden I could assign only the wetland to its own tag, right? So that's kind of why I do that from the very beginning. I actually want to take this though. I want to select all in the same material and I want to group all of my stuff that's on the flat because, and why might I want to, sorry, the instructor in me wants to ask the audience questions. Why might I want to do this class?
It's a little awkward, especially with the minor delay that's happening just in the AV and then the internet delay as well. But Kegi does point out that it is a lot easier to watch in color. I tend to, these colors are nice compared to me because I usually go with things that are over the top just so everything stands out. Fuchsia is not uncommon in my in my drawings.
Let's get rid of any colors that green is bugging me. So I am going to just sort of pull the sort of saturation out of that for the turf, because yeah, it's my OCD. So thank you for bearing with me. All right. Anyway, these are placeholders. We can fix them. All right. So I'll try and, just stay somewhat slower, wait up for a second if I need a response, just to make sure that second delay goes through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, whenever you're working with a site that has a slope, and the reason why I say slope is you'll notice that actually this is at grade here. So I've already done the easy part. The easy part is how you get down, coming down the steps. That's easy because this is all just flat, right? Oh.
Is it really? Yeah. Is that?
I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm just going to eyeball this because my math isn't working today.
Was it corresponding to your 6-inch steps over there? I mean, if you're doing 18-inch chunks, you could almost just match to those.
No, that's okay. I just want to move on because I don't want to come back. I don't want to revisit this. That should be 18, 18, 18, 18, 18. So if I did the math right, I would have done that correctly. But okay. So my point is that there's this grade change between here and here. So this whole site, except for the water, this is where it gets tricky. The water's flat, obviously. The water can't sit on the slope, or else it will. The water level itself is flat. And this boardwalk here is flat. And I'm just going to pull up this reference photo if you don't mind. Open recent. Okay, I'm going to pull up a reference photo. Here's the park again, for those that are not familiar with it. It has, there's a slope that goes all the way down from the back. So it meets the grade and it comes down, and then all of a sudden at this water's edge, it has to meet grade again, essentially, because this water and this boardwalk, this sort of catwalk, becomes flat. So this is going to get tricky. And this is the wall that I'm saying. You can see the wall has actually made up of these railroad rails. So I thought of a way I might be able to do that last night, because I was like, oh, it's going to give me trouble. So I definitely want to give myself a good 15 minutes to do that towards the end. So please, remind me that we want to make sure we do this wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab basically everything. I do not want my stairs, and I'm going to make a copy of it. So whenever I'm working in CAD with CAD files, I'll always, or with topography, I don't need these. So I'm going to get rid of those. So what I want to do is just have a copy floating above my site. And the reason why is because what I want to do is I haven't actually done this on this site. So I don't know for sure if it'll work. But what I would do is I'm always draping stuff. So in this case, what I want to do is keep a copy up here. And then that way, when I do my topography, I can sort of drape it. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. I'm going to cheat it just for sake of time, and I'm going to draw a freehand line. So that means that the water that's sort of along this water's edge, I'm going to kind of let that slope. And even though I know that water here along this sort of edge is flat, but that's okay. I'm going to kind of cheat it and just kind of trace this, because what I want is just sort of a simpler profile to work with. And then with freehand, you got to be really careful, because oftentimes it's really difficult to make sure that it snaps. So what I find myself with a freehand tool, I have to go back and just kind of draw a little line to maybe make that connection. So if you're ever using the freehand tool, just kind of keep in mind, you might have to sort of add that extra line. What I want to do is just sort of simplify this edge, and you'll see why in just a second, I hope, if this works out. So Jody, feel free to give us some fun facts about what you got going on this weekend or whatnot, while I kind of set the stage for this.
I got no fun facts. I'm sort of in awe as I'm watching this process here. I keep shutting up because all of a sudden there's some new twist. Now, are you going to keep the stream in there, or the little creeks?
Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of. I don't need this wall. I don't need this catwalk. I don't need any of this. All this stuff. I'm just wanting to take the stuff that I want to take the stuff that. Whoops. Sorry, I'll be honest. I don't know how Aaron makes it look so easy. Talking intelligently while you're thinking in real time and modeling, it's actually kind of hard.
Well, so there is the talking intelligently.
Talking
Is like
intelligently, not just talking.
I don't think he always aspires to talk intelligently. I think he just aspires to talk, and I'm not saying that in a critical way. I mean, I think he's just like just having fun. This is him playing. So
yeah, I think
he doesn't try too hard.
I don't know how everyone else here on this stream feels, but when you're grading it's like fun, but it's fun because of how challenging it is. Like it's never easy. No matter what, it's always something that you have to like kind of really think through. So what like here in this case, I actually copied this up before I split that edge. So I have to go in and remove. So I'm kind of working backwards. I'm actually removing. This is the part that's on slope. So I want only the part that's on slope, and I don't want. So I'm kind of getting rid of everything that's not flat.
Yeah, you talk through this process because I think it looks like it's complex at the same time. While you're doing it, it looks easy. So okay. In fact, that was even the comment earlier was that watching you do this stuff, you just make it all look so easy. So it's funny you said that about Aaron because that's exactly the response that was said about you.
Oh well, thanks everyone that's kind. So what I'm doing is, and this is something that I just taught a workshop with Daniel Tall up in, who, for those of you who, if anyone here works in landscape architecture, you've probably come across a video or a presentation or a book or something. So I had the privilege, to present with, one of my heroes. Some of you guys like sports heroes, and I wait in line to get Daniel Tall's autograph. I guess that's...
Yeah, do not let him hear that because he
doesn't need it. More stuff going.
He doesn't. He does not need any ego stroking.
No, actually,
and I say that in good-natured fun too. Daniel's a nice guy.
So I could have copied this over because I'm using the component. So I could have put it in the component and grabbed it from there. But like I said, some of this is just it's just going through the motions. It's when you're working with grades. It's just going through the motions. What I'm doing is I'm tracing, I'm using my flat edges and my vertical walls to basically form the boundary of what I know is going to be my slope. So if I were to take this line and triple click it, I have some ungrouped geometry. Did you see that? How it selected that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and try that again. Yeah, I've got some ungrouped geometry. Okay, that's all right. Let's just do this.
So K. Brooks said he got to see your presentation with Daniel, and that was one of the two favorite presentations he got to see. So.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That was that's nice to hear. Yeah, it was so my point, okay, so what I was trying to say with Daniel was, before I got sidetracked, was that like this little method here of just using the flat pieces of the model as a reference is something that he does an awful lot and is very good at and makes look easy. So if I'm kind of stumbling through it, it's because I'm talking and doing it, whereas it's fun to watch him do this kind of stuff. So the goal here, if you haven't kind of figured it out, I'm hoping that it sort of starts to be a little self-explanatory. I need a surface. I need a boundary that I can then sandbox. And this is where it gets kind of tricky, because now you can see I have the line work that I want to drape. I have my flat planes at the bottom, and then I have my sloped surface, essentially my boundary that I'm going to make the sloped surface with. So if I did this right, I need to pull this out of that group, and I need to put it here, and then I need to explode it. So if I did this correct, if I triple click this is a boundary. And if I look at it in an elevation view, right? Are you seeing this, Jody? Does that work okay?
Yep. No, that's good.
You're seeing the slope. It's not a huge cross slope, but obviously this is a 200-foot site block. So when you're standing there, it's definitely noticeable. So what I want to do is save, right? Thank you, everyone. Save, because we're going to run contours, and sometimes, depending on how complex it is, it might give you a little bit of trouble, but that actually wasn't too bad at all. I'm going to go back to my color view, just if that's easier to see. So I'm going to select that, run from contours, and it just filled it in. And contours is kind of funny, because what it does is it basically will fill in, it'll interpolate, which if I said that correctly. It'll fill in the extra pieces. So what I do is I'll usually explode the from contours. And now the contours that interpolated, so watch, if I didn't explode it and I pulled that off, you can see that the mesh is actually bigger than the boundary that I want it. So if I go ahead and explode that, which someone says, oh, be careful, you're exploding your mesh. I can actually double click each of these, or I can paint bucket. Sometimes I'll just paint bucket a material and I'll, whoops, didn't mean to do that. And what I'll do is you'll see I always group first, shortcut. So I shortcut for group. I always group first and then delete. So if I didn't do that, for example, I'm just going to copy this and then I'm going to explode it. Okay, so going back here, if I take this and I select it like this, watch what happens if I just deleted that. Look what happens to my mesh. Yeah. I splintered it. I fractured it. So that's why if you ever see me group stuff first, I'll make it a group first and I'll delete it. Because when you make something a group, what's cool is it duplicates the edge that they share. It doubles it. So it's like when you delete it, you're not deleting that original edge anymore. You're only deleting the duplicate edge. So,
see, this is the pro tip I'm taking away from it, because that is great. That is great advice right there.
All right. So
but
I think
I can't count the number of times I've completely munged my drawing by deleting and then having to undo it like that.
Ooh, I'm going to show you a faster way to do that. I'm going to select everything, and then I'm going to double select. I'm going to double click the face, group, delete. There we go. So now what I've got is I've got this. I'm going to group that, and I'm just going to give this. I just want to
say that like pretty much everybody in chat is now saying that is a great tip. So I'm not alone in that tip. Although Tyson's comment is rather, why are you using from contours instead of soapskin?
Would Tyson like to see from soapskin to see the difference? Because that's a very, very good question. That was something we covered with Daniel Tall and I. We went actually into quite a bit of detail as to the difference between the two.
I guess it depends on what you got time to do.
How much time do we have? We're at 47 minutes in?
Yeah, you got an hour and 15 to go.
Oh, we've got plenty of time. Okay, let's do that. I'm going to hide the from contours. I'm going to delete the mesh. And then, so the question that Tyson asks here, thank you, Tyson. I have to find soap bubble. So for those of you that work with contours or grading or anything, or even just organic forms like canopies, you're going to find that soapskin is kind of your best friend. It's this really weird extension. I think of it as weird because it's a weird name, but it functions weirdly, and you'll see why. Let me just show you. I'll stop talking. So you want to make sure that you have a continuous face. It has to be closed. You can't have contours will do it where you can just have a top line and a bottom line, but it has to be a continuous closed boundary. And then what you do is you can skin it. So it's using a quad mesh instead of what's called a tin mesh. So from contours creates triangles, and I'll show you the difference in just a second. This is a quad mesh, and I'm going to enter the number of divisions, and I'm going to go 30. Actually, I don't really need that many. I'm going to try 20, maybe 30. Okay, you have to be careful. So the more subdivisions you give your mesh, the more detailed it's going to be, but also the more dense it is. Given the fact this is a pretty flat cross slope across the site, I'm going to keep it fairly. So watch what it's doing right now. It's going to fill in the gaps. I'm going to press enter, and see how it. Watch what it did is it's kind of sculpted itself and it laid itself down. And if I turn my hidden objects back on, and I turn my hidden geometry on, you're going to see this is what the mesh looks like. I'm just going to move this off to the side for 1 second, so bear with me. This is what the mesh looks like from contours. You can see what it did is it just basically connected the points and it created a triangle to fill in. So this is actually something that DEM files use, but this is going to give you a smoother, more regular terrain that you could use also if you were going to manipulate it, like sculpt it. This would be something that I think would be a little bit more accurate. You can see how the subdivisions are equal, whereas this one has like these big, skinny and big triangular planes. Tyson, does he want to weigh in on which one I should move forward with? I don't care. They both will work the same for our purposes. Because it's hidden geometry.
We'll give the whole crowd a chance to say, work with which one to work with. Which do you find one is easier to work with as you go?
No, I tend to use from contours because I like to use and promote the native tools. Soapskin has an extra feature called bubble. So if you wanted to actually mound. It's great for mounds, but since this is a flat cross slope, I can't really use the bubble feature for this.
So Carson says stay with the nice one. Tyson says go with the whatever you prefer. I personally recommend going with what's native since that's what everybody's got.
I'm going to go with that because I think that there are. I'm going to go with that. It doesn't ultimately. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But it was a good question. Yeah. So the next part of this here is going to be to get my flat line work, which is where I have. Let me switch back to color because it's a little bit easier to see. But basically, my flat line work now needs to sit on grade. So this is why I work with my flat grades, and I say flat grades meaning I'm push-pull, which you can use the push-pull tool. And then I work with my slope, and then I work with my flat, meaning flat line work. So I have all three of these basically in real time, and I'm always working vertically. So because I can always drop. There's a drop extension you'll see in a little bit where you can always drop onto the surface of the terrain. So that's why I don't work off to the side or I don't work under the model. I always work above the model because you can use both drape and drop. And if I'm being like, okay, anyway, sorry, I'm gonna go.
No, you're good.
Yeah, okay. So I drop this into place. What I need to do is select this here. I'm going to save. Hope this works. It should be because it's not too complex. I'm going to go ahead and grab my drape tool, and I'm draping this onto this. It says, where do you want to drape it? I want to drape it right here. Click that. Give it a second. You can see my hands. Don't touch the mouse. Don't click anything. Just let it do its thing. Watch the pretty colors. Okay. And that didn't do a great job. That was not, oh, you know what? Daniel gave me a little tip that I didn't know, pro tip. He says that it doesn't look like it needs it though, but he says what you want to do is you want to soften this all the way. You want to soften your terrain slope, your from contours all the way. And then what you want to do, actually, you know what? I'm going to back up a step because actually this is a great question. I haven't tried this. I erased that terrain. I'm going to drape it on both. And I want to see if there's a difference between draping on a sandbox terrain and draping on a soapskin terrain. If that's okay. If y'all will humor me. All right, so I'm going to make sure that that's softened all the way. And I'm going to try this one more time because Daniel says if you soften it, it's actually going to improve the way drape functions. We're going to find out. So I want to take that line work and I want to drape it. This is the yellow one here. That's this from contours, and the white one is from soapskin. Let's see if that's better. If not, there's another way to do it. I don't like to do it this way, but I do find myself having to do it this way sometimes. If it's, oh, it didn't really help. Okay. Huh. All right.
All right. Now, how does it do on soapskin?
I don't know. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, make sure I'm not in. Okay, so let's try this again. We got our thing. We're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna check this. It's softened. Yes. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and drape that onto the soapskin terrain, and I'm gonna learn something here today if this actually works better. The other way to do it would take just a couple minutes longer. It's not that difficult. It's not a big deal. It's not something to worry about, but it would take.
It might be worth doing anyway, just to learn. Wow.
Okay.
See, so that would be the compelling reason to use soapskin and bubble. And actually, Peter B said he prefers soapskin and predicted that this would be better.
Maybe I'm still seeing some pieces that aren't filling in, so I'm going to go ahead and
do your workaround.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and do it sort of the slow way, but it's the safe way. So if you'll bear with me here, let's try it this way. Sometimes, this is also why I work with materials first. Sometimes I've found that if you drape it in pieces, it works better. And the other option is if this doesn't work, what you do is, and I'm going to select all of these, I'm going to weld the edges so we get the nice smooth edges. The other option, I'm spending an awful lot of time on grading, but this whole site sits on a cross slope. So I think that's what was interesting. And then I want to spend the rest of the time on the wall, that rail wall.
Yeah, I feel like what you're working on right here is what most people the kind of thing that most people encounter and are always looking for a smart way to handle.
For people who didn't, I could use Fredo's multiple push-pull, joint push-pull, which would have been smart, but instead I'm just doing this the old-fashioned way because I'm talking as I do it. For those that didn't attend base camp, this is the kind of pro training we did at boot camp. I mean, we walked you through, we gave you these files. We gave you a file that was broken up step by step. We walked you through every single thing. So for anyone who did not get a chance to attend. This is the kind of stuff that I hope that people appreciate, because this, you got to go to base camp otherwise. So what I did here was I gave it a thickness that was kind of annoying, but it would have been faster if I used Fredo's joint push pull. And I'm going to go intersect with, I want to say intersect with, I try to place my extrusion inside of my mesh group, and the reason why is because by doing that I can use intersect with selection. When you have intersect with model, if you have hidden geometry or you have hidden line work or hidden objects, it'll intersect with those. So what you want to do is be really careful about intersecting with the whole model, because you're actually possibly can be intersecting with things that you don't even know you're intersecting with. So what I do is I kind of try to play it safe, and I say intersect with selection only, which is just the piece that I just extruded. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take this in just a couple of pieces, and I'm going to intersect it. And someone might say, well, that's time consuming on the front end. But if I do that drape and those faces, those edges don't close, it's time consuming on the back end, because then I got to go in and I got to fill those in, or I have to use an extension to close those. So it's thinking, because I'm intersecting, a pretty detailed terrain with a pretty,
that would be the downfall, I guess. Yeah, there's a lot of calculation, a lot of math happening right now.
A lot of math. Yes, luckily it doesn't show you like what the algorithm's doing in the back end. It just gives you a pretty beach ball to look at instead.
So it
again,
used
hands
to
off,
have, it used to do like this little ASCII progress bar in the bottom. I guess I didn't realize, or maybe they didn't do it for this thing, but that was always one of the funny things to do, because it literally was just like a little arrow on each end, and then it just shows a line slowly progressing.
Now let's see how that worked. Now you'll notice when I select these, you'll notice every single one of them was broken absolutely perfectly. So that's why I'm saying that, yeah, that did take, an extra minute to do that. But to me, it was worth it, because I have the pieces broken exactly as I need to. And I really wish that, the drape does work often. I'm not going to knock the drape tool. It does do a great job. But sometimes in this case, I don't always know why. I don't even pretend to know why.
Do you have, is that an M1 Mac or is it an older Mac?
It's an old one. This is a 2017 iMac Pro. So it is an iMac Pro, but it's a 2017. So it actually kicks butt, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it did. But it did really well for, its age, quote, air quotes.
Oh, okay. Oh, hang on. I thought I grouped those. Nope. Select all on the same material. Group it. Okay. So this is where, like, if we played, we could play some, this is where it starts to get, this is where, like, when I'm listening to music, it's like I get into my zone. Can we try joint push pull on this one? Let's see if
yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
Tools, Fredo, joint push pull, vector push pull, because we want to make sure that we're staying vertical. Oh, why did it just do the one? Oh, I see. It's still calculating. Okay, so let's see if this is any quicker. I don't know if this is any quicker than just push pulling it myself. It's fun. I can sit back and watch it, and that's kind of fun. Yeah, I kind of feel anyone who just joined us, thank you for what you see on this screen. This is where Aaron, is like, "Oh, Eric, do you really want to do grading, on a live stream? Do you really want to do this?" And I was like, "Yes, the people need this. Yes."
Well, the better question is, do you really want to be doing these complex plugin operations without saving first?
Oh, I always I saved. You didn't see it.
Oh, okay.
Always save. All right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna select the face, and then hang on one second. I'm gonna do this, but with my mute quietly. Okay. Actually, you can just listen to my dog in the background. That's fine.
That's fine. At least we can hear the stump grinder or whatever. Oh
yeah. She's funny. She's a Chiweenie, so she thinks she's a guard dog. They all do, don't they?
Yeah.
What's cool about this is you don't have to do every single one, right? So let's say that I do the I'm doing the planting areas. Well, guess what happens? By nature, it leaves the paths in between. So it's only if you only have to do what you think you need to do. Because in this case, if I do this series of paths, or if I do the water, you'll notice that actually, or in this case, it could just be as simple as turning on my hidden geometry and just coming in and saying, actually, you know what? At this point, let's just close. If it's just a line, let's just close those ourselves, and that's okay. Did that work right? Oh, you have to click here and here. There we go.
So I didn't get to see this year's Polygon presentation, but Joseph does point out that it'll be great whenever they finally get that thing done.
Oh,
be
yeah,
interesting to see it.
For those that didn't, yeah, they've got some cool stuff coming. Let's keep. Let me see. I just want to make sure I've got all the right pieces. I'm going to drape this water, and then I'm just going to treat the paths as sort of the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm deleting these. I really shouldn't be. You'll notice that I have this extrusion. You'll notice that I hid one of them and I deleted the other. I almost should go back and undo that. I'm not going to. I'm just going to risk it. So the reason why is that this extrusion here, I might need that again. So what I often do is I'll hide those and I'll leave it above my model. So that way, if for whatever reason this didn't work, I just go in and I grab that again and I'll just do that again. So you don't want to go through all that work and then delete it like I did on the other one. I'm going to go ahead and just leave that there. So anything I think I might need, I just go ahead and hide it, and then that just tells me that.
It's so curious to watch your method for this, because Tyson just he has just a whole mess of stuff strewn off to the side as he does it, because he similarly saves things, but rather than going up like you do, he goes off to the side.
Weld edges, right? So we're going to follow the same protocol. Use the modifier to just for fun. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and push-pull that again. So when I do my extrusions, I make sure that I'm pulling it higher than my total grade. So if my site, if it was a 200-foot difference between the top and the bottom of the slope, I would make sure that my extrusion is actually larger or higher than 200 feet. Because what you do is when you do your intersect, you want to make sure that you're actually covering your entire slope. So last one, folks. Thank you for, I say thank you. Thank you for bearing with me.
You're doing
I'm
good.
going to go ahead and select everything. And I'm just going to say intersect faces with selection.
Endless specs makes it, yeah. The stacking horizontally like that is, vertically like that is a pro tip that you're not even mentioning as a pro tip, that you can always come back to it and it's always in the right spot. It's just farther and farther up.
And you'll notice at this point, I'm not even wasting time with tags, because I could if I wanted to, but then you're toggling tags on and off. It's even just too slow to do that. It's faster to hide it. And I have a shortcut key for hiding objects, and I have a shortcut key for viewing hidden objects. So it's faster for me to shortcut turning objects on and off that are hidden than it is for me to assign them to tags and then assign them to scenes. But sometimes, depending on the project, it's actually worth the effort. To go through and take those objects, those hidden objects, the things that we want to keep. Tyson calls it his boneyard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it makes sense to keep those, put them on a tag, turn the tag off. But in this case, I'm just hiding them. Because it's above my site. Because it's above my site, I'm not worried about it giving me problems because it sits up above.
So Carson was wondering if you have pre-selection for push-pull active, because that might actually be worth deselecting in the settings.
A pre-selection? I'm not sure I follow.
Like you can set up it's a setting like for at the model level, or maybe it's the whole SketchUp level, of whether pre-select works with push-pull, or if you have to go through and anyway, it's a setting worth messing with. I don't want to.
That's something. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. I just use the P for push-pull, and that's my shortcut. So if I'm always, whenever I learn something new after doing this for so long, and Basecamp was so great because it's like, you think you know everything, and then you come out of there and you watch somebody who's really good. Matt Wheeler, for example, I've been plugging him constantly because he, this didn't connect right. That's my path. Oh,
yeah.
What did I do?
Actually, that was Kegi just asked if you needed separate path material to split the paths up, which I guess you're now finding out.
Yep. Yeah, sorry, I'm talking, so that's why I'm just kind of spacing out. So if I do this wrong,
You're,
it's just because
you're fine. It
yeah.
happens to me when I'm not talking. So
I'm just going to treat the path material as one material for right now. I know that's maybe not the right way to do it, but let's just keep it simple. KISS, folks. So what I was saying about like Matt Wheeler's presentation is he used solid tools, and I know how solid tools work. I've used them a few times. I've never seen anyone use solid tools like he used them, and I was so impressed. So anyway, my point is that yeah, you pick up a few new tricks. All right, so that's it.
I
Now,
can't decide if you're an advertisement for the next base camp or if you're just praising these people or all of the above. But it's kind of funny I feel like that's just the way it is for at least, a couple months after base camp. You just keep talking about the little things you learn.
I don't know if anyone caught this, but when I copied this over and slid this over, they are not lined up exactly. You'll notice because this catwalk jogs. So when I copied and moved this over, oh no, either that or I just copied it wrong. Yeah, no, I copied it wrong. Anyway, shifted that back into place. All right, well, let's build this catwalk now. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but I'm going to call it that. I'm going to go ahead and push this up. I don't know, how high should it be above the water level? This is when you use your reference images.
Yeah, like looking at the
This is when you
pictures,
use your reference image and you just say,
like
it sort of maybe floats 2
4 to
inches
6
above the
inches.
surface. Yeah, like maybe 6
Actually,
inches.
and maybe
Yeah.
it depends on the time of year because I'm looking at different pictures and sometimes
Oh, like the
sometimes
water
it looks
level
like
changes.
sometimes it looks like it's a solid 10 inches.
Okay, push pull. I'm gonna go with 4. Nope, I'm gonna go with 6. All right, we're gonna give it 6. We're gonna kind of treat it like a stair. And we want to make sure that it aligns with that stair, which actually that makes sense that it does sort of align with that stair. So even if I needed to fake it and just pull it and snap it, this is where I think, you get to use your judgment and just be like, well, let's just snap it and just, I don't know, it could be 6 1/4. The other thing it does is you'll notice that this is where my slope comes down. So even though I technically should lift my slope up a little bit, but instead what I'm going to do is fake this, and I'm actually going to extend my catwalk so that it dies into the slope. And I think the reality is that's probably okay because that might be the way it's constructed anyway. Anyone who wants to call me out, please. I love it when it's usually Tyson, but I'm offsetting this and I'm bringing this edge up. Actually, there might be a reason why I would group this first, and I'll show you why in just a second. I'll group this, copy it up, let's say 1 inch, 2 inches, and then bring this up 4 inches. And I'm not sure if that's right or not, but if I go back to that photo again, I keep tilting because my microphone is blocking. Sometimes with these catwalks this will actually have a little reveal because for drainage, right? Because if it rains, you don't want water to pool. So that edge, that lip would actually float above the surface, and which kind of makes sense. Are we okay with that? How that looks?
I think it looks good to me.
Okay, and I'm going to kind of
nobody else is talking, so
nobody else is talking. Nobody has anything to say.
well, no, just they don't have any comment on that particular thing.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. No, that's fine. You guys don't have to say anything. You just get to hopefully just enjoy yourselves. Okay, let's save that. I think we're doing pretty good. Somebody might sit there and say, "Well, Eric, I'm going to call you out on this. That water cannot sit flush. It has to drop down. So if we're going to do this right, we need to push that water down." This is where it gets a little tricky because you can see that I'm doing this now on slope. So this is where, again, I think that as much as I would love to do this with native tools, and it's possible, this is why we're doing, this is why we have extensions. I'm going to use joint push-pull again, and I'm going to try this and see if it works. I just saved. I'm going to use vector push-pull. Vector push-pull, basically, it just push-pulls. Instead of parallel or perpendicular to the surface, it actually push-pulls vertically, which is what you would get in reality. So what I'm going to do is grab that, and I'm going to push that down. It didn't go, or at least I couldn't see. So I'm going to try that again. Oh, the other options you could do is you could group this. You could move it down. How many inches do we think we want that to be? 2 inches? It can't be too big because what you're going to get is you're going to get a tripping hazard. Fredo, joint push pull. vector push-pull. And I find it's easier to push up than it is. Remember how I said it's easier to pull up than it is to push down sometimes? I'm going to try that and see if that works. And I'm going to go up
But,
to...
At the very least, going up, you can more easily see the difference. It's easier to spot the pull.
Yeah, so I'm going to, don't worry about that little gap. I'm going to fix that. It just means that I left a little air gap. So now what I'm going to do, if I was really particular, I would go in and I would choose the right colors to match. Like this is wetland, so I would match the wetland color. But what I'm just going to do is grab just the paver color for now. So hopefully everybody saw what I did there. I basically I use vector push-pull. And what it does is it lets you extrude on curved surfaces or on where you have this triangulated. You have this, if I turn my hidden geometry on, it's basically a quad mesh. So we can extrude that now. So now it's kind of cool because you get that little reveal. And even if I did black and white and I turn my shadows on, for example, and you get that little, just that little detail, just that little shadow detail is just really nice. I geek out on that kind of stuff. So thanks. Do you know what I mean? It just brings it.
Chef's kiss. Is that what you're saying? It's like little something.
Yeah, a little something. All right. Oh, I changed my shadow settings, so my colors are all look off now. Oh, yeah. Eric,
that's the problem when you let your OCD start talking. Is it's just going to keep harping on you.
Okay, so when I hit all that stuff, I want to make sure that I update my update whatever plan that I'm working on, because you'll notice this is kind of like my working scene, so it shows everything, and then this is like my clean scene, so I can just see like what the sort of result is. All right, so I want to do this rail. We're just past the hour mark, so I'm going to do that vector push pull one more time, just because otherwise it's going to bug me, and then I want to stop on sort of the modeling of the terrain, because from here it's actually pretty easy. I would do, if I was to take this forward, we would add some better materials. These were just placeholders. The other thing we could do is we would add a handrail. So if I go back and look at this image one more time, you'll notice, zoom back out. Oh, you can't see it from that image. How about this image? Yeah, okay. You'll notice that there is a little center handrail that sort of runs down the staircase. So that would be something that we could do. We could build this little shade structure in the background. You can see, but that little canopy, but I feel like we could do a whole, hour just on building sort of these complex organic canopies. So for me, I feel like the next step would be this rail, doing this rail wall, because that's kind of going to be tricky, and then maybe place a few trees and put some materials depending on how much time we have at the end. How does that sound?
Perfect. Sounds perfect.
Sounds perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this again. I'm going to push this down by 2 inches, and then I'm going to go into this group, save, select this face. That's this little water channel. Because it's on a slope, I'm going to come down and grab joint push pull, vector, and I'm going to come up. If I'm lucky, I can snap it this time. It's okay. It's okay. I'll do what I did last time. I did it just lower, and then I moved it up. Can I do 2 inches? Can I do 2 inches? There we go, 2 inches. I'm gonna let that run. Don't touch anything. Delete that top face. Select everything except the surface. Grab the path color and paint the path color. So we have just a stone sort of liner edge. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. Okay. You ready to do this wall? So I'm a little nervous, actually.
I'm so ready.
So ready. Okay, let's look at this wall. Let's talk about it first, because I think it needs a little bit of explanation. Number one is it's made up of, I already said in the beginning, it's made up of actual rail, because this district, Pearl District, used to be rail yards. And so possibly these may have been reclaimed and stored and then reused, which is actually kind of a cool idea. They have these little blue lights in there, so at night it lights up. I'm not going to worry about those. right now, I'm just going to worry about sort of the undulation of the shape because I feel like that's enough. You'll also notice the ties are cut not the same size. So what we have to do is we have to make a tie. It's got to follow a different path at the bottom, a different path at the top, and it has to be all of different lengths. So this is where, again, the teacher, excuse me, and me would say, how might you approach this? Because it took me a while to think about how we might do this. No, I'm actually asking. Yeah, no, if anybody wants to, I would love.
Wait,
no, I would love it.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah, I would love to know a different way because I did. I'm going to make this a component, and there's the reason why is because I'm going to go ahead and work. In this case, like Tyson, I'm going to give Tyson some props. I'm going to go ahead and work off to the side, and the reason why is just it's easier for me to see. But I made it a component, so anything I do over here, it's going to happen over here. But some people say, well, just hide the rest of model. But actually what I like to do is I like to see the effect on the model, but I like to work by itself. So I actually don't like to use the hide rest of model setting that I know that a lot of people really rely on.
Yeah.
Okay. So first thing we need.
Carson's recommendation was Flowify.
Flowify. That's a good one. I don't know. No, I haven't. I haven't actually used it.
Oh, okay. Paul's not quite sure what to do either, though. I wouldn't even know where to start. This is going to be exciting.
Okay, so the first thing I need to do is figure out how tall I want this thing to be. So I know that my grade change here is 8 feet. And if you look at this photo one more time, we have to kind of guess at, I can't see it, but if you look here, we just have to guess at how high we want this to be. Don't worry, we can change it later, but this almost looks like, what do you think, 6 feet? If you put a person standing at the top of the staircase? Let's just go with 6 feet. So
I call it 8.
Okay, let's split the difference. Let's say 15 foot tall. So let's go with that. So first thing I want to do is I need, all right, let's hope we have time for this. I want to go quick. So I might talk a little bit less and just kind of work for now. 15 foot.
Okay.
Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do this as a component. It's going to be easier if I do this as exploded geometry. So one thing I need to do is I need a reverse curve. So what I'm doing is I'm getting just the outside of this curve. And then what I'm doing is on this bottom one is I'm doing the same thing. I'm just getting just the bottom of the curve. And you'll see it's almost like it's like a helix. It's like a DNA strand. It's just, it's spread apart, right? If you look at it from the top, it weaves sort of in and out on itself. And I just drew this from the aerial. So like, I don't know if this is exactly, how it was designed, but this is to me sort of the intent. So we have the top of the wall, excuse me. We have the top of the wall and we have the bottom of the wall that are different from each other. What I found is that if we want to make our lives easier, we don't actually have to model the whole thing. We just have to model from here to here, from here to here. Actually from here to here. The reason why is because we can make it a component and we can just string it along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off to the side just as a reference. And I'm going to connect it vertically. You're going to see why I'm going to do this in just a second. I want the midpoint of that arc and I want to find the midpoint of, and it doesn't have to be exact. It just sort of needs to be.
Do you need to weld it or is it already welded?
Oh, you'll see. Yes. Because I thought about this last night. Okay, there we go. All right, so what I've got here, if you can see this, it's a little hard. I'm going to rotate around. That's basically the shape once it's going to be extruded. The next thing we need is we need our rail. And a rail is 3.5 inches wide. So I'm going to go 3.5, comma 3.5. And I'm going to extrude that. We said 15 feet. Did we say 15? It doesn't matter because what we're going to do is we're going to change the height anyway, the variable height, 15 feet. Let's just give ourselves something to start with. And I'm going to go ahead and make that.
Endless Fix pointed out that you could even just only do half of this and then mirror it.
Yes. I think we're on the same page, I hope.
Yep.
We'll
also,
see.
their expectation was curve aloft, which is, I think, my thought.
Okay, well, that's I did not know. That's where I'm going. So that's basically where we're going with this. Now, curve aloft is funny, is that this is why I'm actually, why I drew these lines. Is because I want to delete the arc that came from the CAD. Because what curve loft is going to do is, you're going to see it in just a second, what curve loft is going to do is it's going to loft by spline. And so it's going to connect the segments of the curve. So the number of connections is directly related to the number of segments in the arc. So when I redraw this arc, I actually have to choose, before I draw it, I have to choose the number of segments. So when I hit my arc tool, which is A, shortcut, by default, it's giving me 12. Now I did this last night and I played around. I did it with 100, and then I did it with 30, and then I did it with 60. And I found that like 40, 45 segments for the scale of what I'm trying to do works. Now this may not work, so we may have to do this more than once, but let's just try, let's just try that. Let's just try 45 and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is, before I connect the dots, I'm going to change the number of sides to 45. I'm going to do the top one first. I don't think the top and bottom are symmetrical, which is why I'm doing 2 instead of, no, actually it might be. Okay, 45, and I'm going to connect that. I'm not too worried. This was just placeholder. Those little edges were just placeholder. Because we might do this again, I'm actually going to group this and hide it. So there it is. If I turn on my hidden geometry or my hidden objects, there it is. All right, let's just get to the point. So if I click on entity info and I check this arc just to make sure, 45 segments. That's perfect. So save, select this, tools, Fredo, curve loft, loft by spline. Now it already did this because I was playing with it last night. Ooh, I don't know why. Oh, it must be a monitor settings. You can't see the toolbar, so sorry, I apologize, but there's all these kinds of settings. And to be honest with you, I don't know what any of them do, but I know there's this one right here called geometry. So you can either show faces, or you can show like this, where when I loft by spline, it'll fill the spaces in. Or if you uncheck that, or you check just the edges, what it's going to do is it's going to take that same loft, but it's only going to loft the lines, the lines that connect the 45 segments. So so that's what I want to do. So I'm gonna hit yes.
So how many of these settings were in place by default, and how many did you have to sort of fiddle with to get it to do what you wanted?
Only one. The only one that I had to do was I had to hit the one where I said, give me only vertical edges. So because if I do that again, watch, let's just do that again. That's a good question. Tools. Sorry, I don't use toolbar. I don't use icons, so it might be annoying to have to watch me go pull it from a drop down, but that's just what I do. So you can't see it on this menu here, but if you click this, if you click some of these settings where it says geometry, you can toggle through, and you can do horizontal, or you can do vertical, or you can, there's a bunch of settings here. I didn't mess with any of those. The one that I did was I just said, just give me vertical edges only, which is all I wanted. So luckily, that's all I had to play with to get this to work.
That's good.
Okay, good question. So it comes in as a group. I'm going to go ahead and explode that. So each one of these are single lines, which is good. Now, this is the next part. I'm sure people who are smarter than I have done this before on the thread, where we use another extension. And this time I will use, see if I can find SketchUp for You components. So for those that haven't used this is one where I knew somebody had made this extension. I've never used it before, but I thought there's got to be an extension that can turn a line, can replace a line with a component. So if I do this correctly, and I'm going to save, if I do this correctly, if I select all of the edges, all of these verticals, and my rail component, and I hover here, it says lines to components, which is just an amazing tool. I'm going to click that, and there it is. There they are. This is what I need Matt with his ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joey.
I'm horrible about dramatic reactions. Hey, I'm not bringing it. I'm horrible.
No, you're doing great. I'm just saying that, like, you don't want to hear me do the sound effect because that's less fun. All right, so that's good. Now, because this is a component, if I wanted to make this look more like a rail, I could come in here and offset. I don't want the side face. I want the front face. I could offset this, and I'm just making this up. So just, again, don't beat me up. I'm just going to offset this 1 inch. I'm going to pull this.
So it's S4U components is what it was called, right?
S4U components.
Nice.
And I'm going to pull this 2 inches. And then this is just going to be like my really quick and dirty rail. And you're going to see why I'm going to do this on I'm going to do this on both sides, because when I mirror this thing, I'm going to actually, the components may be mirrored. And so I'm actually going to copy this. I'm going to do this on both sides. So I know that Rails don't have Rails on both sides, but I'm just cutting myself some slack.
Yeah, Joseph was making the comment that it'll be interesting to see if Trimble Creator will make this whole thing even easier to do. Because I'll be interested to see if that does it.
Now, if this is not perfect, that's okay, because that's why we made these components. So I can actually just figure out what that sort of angle is. I kind of want it, I think it's probably, I'm gonna turn my shadows off. It's probably, if we go back and look at that photo, I imagine that the top of the rail actually is sort of facing out towards the viewer. So that's what I'm gonna go with, if that's okay. Okay, so then what we do is, of course, power of components. That was actually an Alex Schreier Basecamp. I'm gonna stop. Next live stream, it'll be far enough from Basecamp that I'll stop talking about it, but I think it's still fresh in my mind. But basically, Alex Schreier, he did, I proctored for his, and he did one on the power of components. So just.
And he did that fairly impromptu because he was actually.
Rosewarne, yep.
Yeah, Rosewarne couldn't make it.
Yeah, he pitch hit. And again, this is not, I'm just going to do 180 on this one. So if it doesn't line up perfectly, I could mirror it, but I guess I could just mirror it. Oh, maybe I want to mirror it. Let's see. What's the best way? I can't remember how I can get it to line up proper. Maybe I have to do it that way. I have to mirror and then 180. Is that how I do it? So I can get this. Oh, it's not lining up. It's not lining up. That's not bad. That's not good. What did I do wrong? I would think that if I, maybe it has to do with where I stopped and started the arc. So I'm going to cheat it for now because I want to keep this going. I'm just going to cheat it and just say, let's just place these close enough together that you can't really tell. Because it's a concept, that's why I always say this is a concept plan. This is for, oh no, I don't like that. That's going to bug me.
You can act like there's words that will justify it, but it doesn't actually make you any more comfortable.
No, I know. If I did this right, actually, if I did this proper, I probably would have just done the entire thing. So if we wanted to do it over, what I would do is I would do the whole thing using that same method. So if we want to try it, how much time do we have? We've got 30 minutes. If we wanted to try this, what we would do is try it this way. Let's see how fast we can do this, if that'll work. I'm still 45 segments. This is why Aaron says, oh, just go in cold. Like you guys don't need, you don't need a trial and error. But if you do that, you're going to see me a lot of fumbling. And
that bottom doesn't look like it lines up on the right.
Yeah, you're right. I missed that. It could be that where I copied this arc, it could be better to make sure that that's vertical. And that could be the problem. So if these are vertical, that one's vertical, right? See, because I snapped it, and that one was at this weird angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try that one more time, and thanks everyone for your patience.
Yeah, Keggie's idea of sort of trying to make sure that the end of each segment ends like completely upright, and that way they would just sort of, every time you get to that, if it's technically on the blue axis, then you're going to be good.
Well, I mean, if I did this properly, I mean, I would take this whole thing here, and yes, exactly. I would turn this so that we are snapping. I would get rid of that. I would make sure that this is on the blue axis, right? So now I'm dealing with a proper arc. And then what I would do is I would come over here and I would figure out what this distance is. I would have the exact midpoint, right? And then I would take this and I would copy that over. I would rotate that 180. I was just kind of eyeballing it, thinking that that would be good enough.
Yeah.
And then you learn kind of why maybe that's not good enough. Oh, how do I get the midpoint of, how do I know? Okay, that's the midpoint. I want the midpoint of the arc. I don't want to guess. Oh no, I don't need the midpoint of the arc. Okay, because I don't need it. All right, let's do that one more time. Save, tools, curve loft, skin, loft by spline. Yes, yes, okay, explode. And then bring this guy over here, select that one, grab those, and try that one more time. Okay. And it did it upside down. So I'm just gonna rotate those back into place. Actually, before I do that, I'm just gonna see if that was cleaner. So let's make that a component. No need to name it. Let's take that over and flip it. -1, 180. Okay. So
oh yeah, it's a lot better.
Yeah. So when I overlap those, okay. Let's see. What that? Yeah, I'm just going with it at this point. But that is better. That they do line up better. So if I want to give that a little bit of an air gap, just kind of as a safety gap. So this last one, I don't know why it did that. The last one is kind of in a different position. So you just kind of rotate that around. And then we're going to call it because I got to move on. Okay. I'm going to overlap this one. And I'm going to, okay, that's it. So group that. Again, make that segment a component. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I don't know how many times I need to copy it to make a proper array, but let's just copy it times 8. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, whoa, don't need 8. How many do we need? I don't know. I'm fairly proud of myself, to be honest with you. I don't give myself props very often because I'm not supposed to. It's supposed to be other people's jobs to say, hey, that was cool. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of a clever solution. So
I don't know, man. The whole beauty of problem solving is to have that moment of being proud of yourself.
I just don't want it to go to, you don't want it to go to your head.
Yeah, I don't think that's something you're gonna encounter.
Okay, so I'm not too worried. You'll see that my little undulation doesn't line up exactly. So of course we can fake it. You know, at this point, it's really about making sure that we understand the concept. That's what I do when I teach. It's like, let's make sure that we understand the concept, and then we can move on. I'm going to make this a unique component, and I think that's where my wall stops. So yeah, that looks pretty cool. Let's apply a color to that. It doesn't have to be a Corten steel because I do have some materials I want to end with here in the next, we've got a little time, but maybe in the last 10 minutes, I'm just going to give this kind of a Corten steel looking color as a placeholder. And then save. So this is fun. This is going to be tricky. This is not how the sidewalk would be built. So I'm going to come over here and patch this in. I'm going to just kind of pretend like we didn't already carve that out from the CAD geometry or from the CAD line work. I want to add some trees, and I want to add whenever I watch Aaron and Tyson do this, I'm always impressed by like just their control of like the tools. And then because I'm landscape and I use it, I'm more utilitarian. I feel like I'm a little clumsy, but.
And yet you're still so far ahead of so many. Well, it's easy to hate on our own skills when we see someone else do it different.
Yeah, exactly. When you see somebody else, it's like, oh wow, that's a good idea. Or oh, you're so fluid. So this is a little bit tricky here because because we've got this shape, we need to subtract these pieces. Now I could intersect with model, but this is very highly detailed now that I've put those rails in. So I think what I would do instead is sort of see, I don't know if that helps me or not. What I would do is kind of come in here and grab where I think it starts that curve and go to where I think, somewhere where I think it about where it's ending that curve. And grab that and then just pull an arc. That's actually not, yeah, I'm just gonna do that. Okay, so the reason why I was trying to do that was so that I could just basically push pull that. I think that's easier than going in and intersecting with model, and then I think it could get really messy really fast. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna copy it, because you can see I drew that little back line that's going to allow me to just sort of push pull this thing. And I'm gonna copy that over and hope that my line work is close enough. I might have to just do it for each, to be honest with you, because otherwise you're not gonna get the faces. You're gonna get a different number of segments. Oh yeah, that one, oh, that one's good. Oh yeah, that one's good. Oh, no, I didn't need to do that because I drew a straight line all the way across it. See, somebody's need to call me out. Okay, those
You're doing good. Just keep going.
Just keep going. And then this one here, I'm going to push this I'm going to push this thing in and just delete that. Push that in. I'm using the push pull, but I'm using the modifier. Okay, and just delete that.
So endless fix's suggestion is interauth random components, and Oris now suggests scaling the top.
Oh yeah, thank you for pointing that out. This is why I love doing this as a team, because you kind of forget. You're talking and you kind of forget. Yeah. Okay. So here's the one that I think random components would work, but then I would have to make an individual component of each. So what I'm going to do is come over here to just one of my segments. I'm going to come in so that I can select all of them, and I'm going to go extensions, Chris Fulmer tools. Some of you might know where I'm going with this. Scale and rotate randomly. Now I don't want to rotate because I actually like the way that they're all facing. If I wanted them rotated, I would, but in this case, I kind of like that they're all pointing the same direction. So I'm going to go ahead and scale let's call it 0.85 and to 1. No, let's do 0.90 to 1. I don't want a ton of variation, and then I'm going to click OK. And what it did was, unfortunately, I must have at some point when I replaced these, it must have flipped them. So now I have to actually take. Oh my gosh! I have to take this whole thing and I have to flip it on its head, and then I'm going to have to flip it on its red. Hey, that rhymes. And the other thing I did is, you'll notice I actually left the Curve-Loft geometry inside of the component. So what I want to do is, this is a good opportunity. Now that I did that scale, you can see that Curve-Loft geometry inside that component. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of that. Ooh, okay, how's the best way to do this? I'm going to select all of the components, and then I'm going to select inverse. And then I'm going to group and hide. So do you think that's enough variation, or should we do more? I think that's enough.
I think it looks good.
Should we look at the photo again?
I think.
It looks like it's about maybe a foot to 6 inches. It kind of goes a foot, maybe 18.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's pretty subtle.
Yeah. So if I turn my edges off too, just because the edges are, yeah, you can kind of see that. I don't really like that you can see the seam. If I was doing this proper, I would probably go in and just, spend a little bit more time, make sure you don't get that seam. But I think for today, it's going to have to just suffice. So let's do this just so we can feel like we finished something, and I could share this model with the team and with the group and on 3D Warehouse. Let's bring let's add a couple of people. Let's add some entourage. Let's add some materials and call it. So let's take the last 10 minutes or so. I do have a file where I did I didn't pre-plan this model, so I didn't actually model this in advance, but I did have some materials from that workshop that I taught a long time ago. So I think, yeah, let's go ahead and explode those so that they're in my model. Let's go ahead and replace. I'm going to go ahead and grab that grass. These aren't the best materials, but that's what I had. That's what I had on available. Select all in the same material, grass. And let's grab that wetland, grass. It's a little bit different color. Select all in the same material. Select all in the same material is not a keyboard shortcut, is it?
Nope.
It should be. Select. It's context menu. Select. Oh, all in the same tag? All in the material. Oh.
Oh, there it is.
I'm going to do Shift M for material. Let's try that again. All right, that was fun. That was cool. All right, let's get this water. Come in here. Explode those. And then because it's multiple groups, I'm going to select, I'm going to use my shortcut now. So right now I'm only selected one. So, Shift M. Hey, look at that. Look at that. And I accidentally painted an area that I shouldn't have. And this water is different because this water was, remember, this water was flat. Make a group, come in here, explode all of those. Okay. Wait, I didn't want the blue, sorry. I wanted the water texture, which is this one. There it goes. And this here, this is kind of funky because this is where the two of them meet each other. So you can see I'm actually going in at grade here. So can I get rid of this one? No, that's coming in from here. So I don't need that anymore. So I can get rid of that one. If I was being really like super sensitive about it, I would actually erase, I would hide that edge, and I have to do it twice. I would hide it on the flat part, and then I would pop in here and I would hide it, shortcut, group, enter into the group, and I'm going to right select this edge and I'm going to hide. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going fast just to get through this. Okay. What that does is it means that it's a little bit more seamless. And I'm also going to have to drop my water down because my water is now just an inch too high. Nope, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it because you won't even, depending on the camera angle, you might not even know. Oh, I could bring my grade up instead. I'm going to bring my grade up. There we go. All right. See? Cheat it, folks. If you can't get it to work right, just cheat it.
Looks good for my house.
Well, the reason why is because when you're working with landscape architecture, you're working with a big site. So unless you know you're going to construction documents, it's actually okay to just, I mean, you need to take a lot of liberties. You need to, because there's too much detail. There's too much context. So I find that I always model in service to the story, so that when a story needs more detail, the model gets more detail. And when the story doesn't, the model doesn't. So to me, that's just how I've always modeled. I'm not a purist. That's boardwalk. This is concrete. They're not the best materials, but it's just what I had. Again, what I had. These are pavers. Nope. Use my Shift M trick. And pavers. There is DG in there. You can see this little path is DG, but I'm just going to go ahead. I'll go back later afterwards and clean this up a little bit. Now let's go ahead and bring these tree wells up. We're going to place some trees. We're going to pick a camera angle, and we're going to call it. So we have 15 minutes. We got plenty of time. I'm going to finish 5 minutes early. I'm going to go 10 more minutes. We're going to finish 5 minutes early. I'm going to thank everyone. It's going to be awesome. It's Friday.
Nice. So you're predicting the future now. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like Babe Ruth when he points where he's going to hit it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm doing. So I know that was kind of a, oh, you know what? Here, that was kind of silly. You'll notice these tree wells, these tree grades, they're all the same. So instead of going in and pushing each one up like I just did, because I was talking and not thinking, what you do is you make them a component. Call it tree, well, or planter, whatever you want to call it. And then what I would just do is, it makes more sense just to do it like this. And if you hold a little pro tip, if you use the move tool, 2022 now has a what's called place component feature, which is the same one that TomTom used to have as a component. So if you cycle through your modifiers, you can see it's kind of hard to see if you can see on the screen, but it actually has a little stamp icon shows up. So when you grab this corner, you can just go click. You'll notice, you see, I don't have to repeat that copy every time. Click and click, click, click. If I knew what the spacing was, I would. If I knew the spacing was equal, I would just obviously array it. But I think having that little stamp, 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 stamp technique is pretty cool. And because that's a component, what materials should I put in there? I'm going to put the wetland grass in there, just because I think it looks better than turf. Ooh, we need a material for this catwalk. Do I have a material for that?
Yeah.
That was my DG material.
Is it DG? Or was it? I thought it was some sort of paneling. I'm going
to use the same. This is a wood boardwalk, and so for right now, I'm going to use that. And what's kind of cool is I did group this separately. So I'm going to use extensions, material tools, remove from selection, and oops. So I did group that little riser. So when I paint bucketed, I painted on top of the container. So it painted everything. But what I want to do is I actually want to remove the material from here. Actually, it's not working, but that's okay. I actually want to replace it with just like a stainless steel, edger, right? So you have that contrast in materials, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Clever.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not thrilled with my use of materials. So I'm going to apologize to everyone.
And yet nobody is complaining but you.
No, you know what though? That's I feel like that's the sign of like we all look at our own work differently than other people would. Like I'll criticize mine, I'll criticize it. And other people be, oh, that looks great. And I'll be like, no, because I know what's off. Do you know what I mean? Okay, let's get rid of these. All right, so last step here, I'm going to turn my axes off. I'm going to go to my window styles. I actually don't model with the axis, to be honest with you, most of the time. Don't want that on. Okay, all right. All right, let's throw some trees in here. This is why we kept the aerial. You're like, Eric, you did all this work for the aerial, and then you didn't even use it at the end of the day. And I'm like, well, that's true, but we're going to go ahead and use it now. We're going to go ahead and place some trees. So I'm going to open up I said I would place some entourage, and I would place some materials, and then we will wrap up. So I'm going to go to 2D trees. I like to use just these really simple. Whenever I'm working anyway, like if I know, like, because I usually know that I'm going to go render. So what I'll do is I'll often just work entirely with the 2D trees. And I'm perfectly happy with that, because the 3D trees that are like low polygons, they don't look very good, to be honest. So I'm actually quite happy with just using these 2D trees. So copy a tree and paste it in place. Paste. There we go. So we've got a couple different trees. I'm just going to go ahead and actually I'm going to use that little modifier, that little stamp modifier that I just showed off, because this will be easy, because I'm not too worried if they're placed in the exact locations. I'm just going to kind of match what I see here. And then I'm going to come in and I'll just give it a non-uniform scale. Just to give it, randomize it a little bit. Just because I'm trying to match a little bit sort of the canopy size. So I'm looking at the aerial. I'm kind of using that to sort of judge the canopy size. If you wanted to, excuse me, been talking a lot, you can add like a temporary 2D symbol if it's easier for you, that sort of represents the canopy. So that way when you're in plan view, if it is easier, I often find it's easier. The reason why that looks weird is because I stretched it, because I actually squished that component. So you'll see that's why it looks stretched. But I actually find sometimes it's easier to lay out the trees, to lay them out in plan view. Times 5, times 7. Get rid of 1, there's none there. Shift those back. And, whoops. Oh, this one's a little bit different. So what I'm gonna do is copy that tree. I'm gonna come back to that tree. I'm gonna leave that one there. And I'm gonna pretend like all the trees inside the park are gonna be a different species. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab something that just looks a little bit different, which is, let's grab these guys. I like this tall one, even though that's not the tree that, it's not the tree that I think would grow there. If I was being really, if I really wanted to, I would sort of look at the different species, you know, and I would find one that matches and stuff like that. That's a tree there. You can tell, sometimes it's hard to tell, but you look at the shadow. So this right here could easily be just like some grass, but you can look at that shadow and think, no, actually that's a small tree because it's because of how long that shadow is casting. So I'm going to take one and drop that over there. And of course, if I want to, if I know that that's a small tree, I could differentiate it a little bit from the others and just give a little bit of variety. But you know, same thing. We just used another extension. Remember, we just used that extension from Chris Fulmer. I can do that again. Chris Fulmer, scale and rotate randomly.
What, using extensions twice in a row?
I'm using the same extension. I'm using it for something different now. So I'm gonna just and the same thing. I'm gonna come over here and just flip a couple of these along their axis just to add variety. So some of you have seen my I have a skill builder on this, because if you look at them like this, you'll see that they all just are facing the same angle. So some of these I'll just go flip along green, flip along green, flip along red, you know, just kind of give it a little bit of variety. Now, one thing here is you'll notice when I placed them on the aerial. So I'm going to select all instances, move them up. And then because we're on a slope, I often will, when I lay my trees out, I lay them out over the aerial, but usually what I'll do is I'll lay them out on the CAD plan because, you know, if it's a design, those trees won't be there. That's only for existing trees. But if it's, select, I only want to select my trees. So select all instances. So what I do is, remember, I work whenever we have topography. I'm also going to get rid of that little circle, that temporary circle I put. And 3 minutes before because I said I was going to finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use one last extension is I'm going to select all my trees, right click, and say drop. And what they're going to do is they're going to drop down onto the surface. And what's cool about that is because if you have this slope here, just for fun, I'm going to cut a section. And I'm going to move that section into the site. And that just shows you where we started, right? Hang on. That just shows you where we started here. Styles, edit. Section cut lines should be black. Section fill should be in. And great. Okay. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the grade change. And if I was doing this proper too, I would have actually pulled the water level down. I would have come down like 20 inches or 30 inches so that I actually had a ground plane to the water. I could do that right now. So you would come in here and you would just push pull this and you would give that like, you know, I don't know how deep that is. Call it 30 inches. You have to be careful if it's too, by code, if the drop is larger than 30 inches, I believe, you need a handrail. All right, I think I'm okay. The reason for doing that is because if you were to come in here and make that material, colors in model, like it's got a little bit of, doesn't have transparency, but because it's water, if you wanted to give that material transparency, now all of a sudden you could see a bottom, you could see through it. So anyway, just kind of, I'm going to call.
It's a nice little additional touch.
Yeah.
You can tell that you like to.
I'm going to turn. Sorry, go ahead. I'm listening.
It's the kind of thing that you, as a person who likes to do renderings, it makes sense that you're looking at these display options.
Yeah. So last thing I'm going to do, because I've got the time, I'm going to go ahead and say 2D people. I've made a bunch of my own people. I don't know about you guys, but I made a whole collection of people like taking selfies and staring at their phones. And the reason for that is because that's what everyone's doing whenever you go out in public space. They're all looking at they're all looking at their phones. Nobody's talking to each other anymore. So why do we put people like socializing when that's not what they're doing?
So it's a little social commentary in your component placement. Nice.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very much fun. Sometimes too, when I work with people, I'll just remove. No! I just pressed the wrong button. This is bad. I accidentally hit remove materials from the entire model, which is a cool look. Undo, save. I wanted to say materials tool, remove from selection. So when I work with people, I will often just give them like a charcoal gray color like this. Because the reason why is because I always think that the people are really there for scale. They're there to show use. They're not there. They're not the main story. They are the actors, but the stage set is what's most interesting. So what I want to do is flip along components red. He's taking a picture. She's taking a picture of him, taking a picture of the wall. So that's sort of more like what you would see in real life. And the last one, you were all wondering what I was doing with this tree. I'm actually going to switch the species. I'm going to grab one more just to make it more interesting. And I'm going to come over here, go into this component, paste this one tree, and then I'll only have to do it one time. And how are we doing on time? I said 12:55. Oh, I'm 1 minute over.
Oh, you're grounded.
Oh. What I'm going to do in this last minute, since I'm already over, what I'm going to do is change my field of view. Camera field of view. I want to set it to 45 or 50, which is more natural to what the human eye sees. So which is going to be a little bit wider. And then what I want to do is turn my shadows on. And I actually might come in and turn my edges off just because I think it's just might look cooler. So shadow settings.
Some very impressive output for 2 hours work.
Well, yeah, I know. And if I wasn't talking, we could do it quicker, but okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of find a camera angle that looks cool, and I'm going to call it there. So we're going to go here, and we're going to look up at these people. I want all those rails. I kind of want to be able to make sure that we can see through those rails because that was a lot of the work. Are you, Jody? As long as you're happy, I'm happy. I mean,
I'm happy. I like this a lot. It looks really nice.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to make the shadows show without being too contrasty. And then I want to. Oh yeah, you see what's cool about the shadows. This is where it's fun too, because the storytelling, like the shadows are part of the story. If this wall is the most important thing, this rail wall, then you want to adjust the shadows so that they actually sort of maximize that undulation. That undulation is, a fancy landscape term for that weaving that you get. So I'm going to go ahead and set my camera to 2-point perspective, and I'm going to adjust the view. Maybe pull out a little bit just to get some more grass. Maybe I'm sitting on the amphitheater. Ooh, party foul. This is where using the scroll wheel is harder. So sometimes using this the zoom icon, the zoom tool, is actually easier. And I'm going to save that to a scene, and I'm calling it done. Add a scene, and come over here to no. I was supposed to say thank you. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to do this. It's Friday. It's been a long day. Mm-hmm. I had to cycle through all of my scenes just to get to the right one. So I'm moving. I chose Tanner Springs. I'm saying thank you to everyone, as always, for watching. I mean, these live streams, as Aaron likes to say, I chose something I wanted to do. And the reason why is because I'm actually moving out of Portland. So this is kind of my way to say, Portland, you're from an urban design perspective, you're a great city. You inspired me in my career as a landscape designer. You've got tons and tons of things for me to model. And this is just one small little thing. I'm going to upload this to the warehouse for everybody here. We'll post it in the forums if anybody wants to play around or try modeling this themselves. So this was really me being kind of selfish, but I'm really interested in hearing obviously everyone's feedback and making sure that these live streams touch on some of the concepts and the ideas that you want to see in here. So can't thank you all enough for giving me the opportunity to do this. And hey, like I say every time, as long as you learned one new thing, it was worth the effort. So Jody, parting words.
I think I got 5 things out of that. So it was great.
5 things. Okay. Hey, that's awesome. 5 things. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at my clock. Oh, we're right on time. I'm going to say bye now. Thanks, everyone. See ya. One of us will see ya. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
See ya.